Hey guys, how are you? I hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing a movie review. This movie is an action horror film from Japan, Japanese language English subs, released in the year 2015, directed by Takashi Miike, and this film is called Yakuza Apocalypse. So Yakuza Apocalypse is based in Japan in the mafia called the Yakuza. You've got this Yakuza boss who leads his territory with fear. He's a vampire, and so he's indestructible. He comes against his enemies and he can dispatch his enemies very easily. So everyone looks up to this guy. The civilians love him because they're living better thanks to him. So he seems to have a caring heart, but at the same time he's very ferocious. So one of the Yakuza members really looks up to this boss, and the boss really takes him under his guard and treats him like a son. So they're very close to each other, and one night this Yakuza boss is actually killed. He's decapitated, and this leaves this younger apprentice absolutely devastated. So he picks up the severed head, and all of a sudden the severed head comes to life and it bites this guy on the neck. And so basically this Yakuza boss is giving his power to his apprentice in order for the apprentice to take back the territory that was once theirs and try and rule and protect the civilians once again. So there is a running war with another Yakuza family, and this vampire believes that he can now protect everybody and win this war, but when the other Yakuza family have a secret weapon that is greater than the powers that this main character has, it threatens to not only destroy this Yakuza family but also the world itself. So whether or not the world will succumb to this evil power is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Yakuza Apocalypse. If you guys thought that synopsis sounded crazy, then that's exactly what Takashi Miike is. You guys, most of you will know who Takashi Miike is. This is a guy who does Japanese cinema very well. It's typical Japan. It's very crazy. It's over the top. It's caricature violence. It actually feels like you're watching an anime or just a cartoon of just excess. So you've got Ichi the Killer, you've got Visitor Q, you've got Audition, all these great films that really set Japanese cinema apart, and it gave Takashi Miike a cult status. So I'm a big fan of Takashi Miike. I think one of his most underrated films is Sukiyaki Western Django, which I absolutely loved, and I'll review that in a few days. But this movie, I had high expectations based on the fact that the trailer looked really insane, and Takashi Miike really has an eye for this kind of cinema. And I thought that was going to be something like Ichi the Killer, that has absolutely extreme brutal violence and has very outrageous characters. And to some extent that is the case with Yakuza Apocalypse. There are some very colourful characters. At the start of the film there is some pretty brutal violence, and it really sets the tone for a Takashi Miike film. But unfortunately Yakuza Apocalypse is an example of a director who is making too many films. Now this guy, he's a prolific filmmaker. In fact, I think he's making 3 or 4 films a year, which is incredible, and I can applaud the guy's dedication to cinema, and it shows that this guy loves what he's doing. But I think that movies more recently of his, it actually feels like they're being rushed. It doesn't feel like each movie has had true dedication to it. It just feels like Takashi Miike has a lot more on his mind, and he's not concentrating as much, and he's not putting as much of his talent inside the films. And I think Yakuza Apocalypse is a movie that does fall under that category, because the start of the film was very good. In fact, the first 90 minutes was fairly decent, but it goes for 2 hours, and after the 90-minute mark it starts to become very repetitive, and this is actually an indication of a director who's lost his ideas. And so instead of trying to build something of a different twist, it does become very repetitive. You've got the fight scenes that were great at the start, but they just tend to go over and over and over, and you think to yourself, I want something new, but nothing new ever comes to it. And so you think, okay, I've seen this all before, and now I'm just starting to get tired of what I'm actually seeing. And then you've got some really outrageous stuff that happens towards the end, which I really liked, but once again it just feels like it's very flat. It feels like it's not elevating itself. It has a platform, but it doesn't feel like it's really jumping to anything of a great standard, which is the case with Ichi the Killer. So that to me was the biggest disappointment. As I said, you've got great characters, you've got a great sort of concept of this vampire Yakuza up against this very insane evil, and it should have been great, because mixing an insane story with a great director like Takashi Miike, you're in for a surprise. But unfortunately this movie was not a very pleasant surprise. I just thought it was lacking motivation, and it just didn't match the standard that Takashi Miike usually has. So the soundtrack is there. Some of the soundtrack sounded very good, some of it didn't. Some of it matched the scenes that was playing in, and others it didn't. And that's another problem I had had with the movie is that as far as the tone is concerned, it was very inconsistent. There were some moments where it was serious, other moments, and the next minute all of a sudden it's outrageous, and the tonal differences don't really mix in very well, and it feels like it's a very disjointed movie, and it's a movie that doesn't really know where it's going, which again is an indication that Takashi Miike is making too many films, and he doesn't have his concentration based solely on one movie, because this guy has demonstrated in the past that he can do this sort of stuff, and he does have a very specific tone to his films, and he stays true to them, as is the case once again with Ichi the Killer. I think that's his best film, and I think that these days it's the fact that there are a lot of tonal differences, the fact that it does feel very disjointed and the fluency is not there, it shows that maybe 3 or 4 films a year is too many, because you're not really having your mindset on one particular piece of work. You have your mindset on others as well, and it just feels like a movie that's lost concentration, and in the end what you get is just a very disappointing film. I was expecting something of a typical Takashi Miike, but once again it just feels like his heart is not really in this movie, and in the end what it becomes is a movie that's not very violent. At the start of the movie it was very violent, but it just feels like everything that it had at the start, it just runs out of steam and it just doesn't know where to go. It loses motivation and it just meanders along, and it patters out to a film that is definitely not going into the pile of memorable Takashi Miike movies. So if you are a Takashi Miike film fan, then I would say, pass up the opportunity to watch this, because it does have his trademarks, but those trademarks are not really tied up to the standards that he usually is. So overall, for Yakuza Apocalypse, going to give it 1.5 stars. I was disappointed, not coming recommended. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.